This is part 2 of my story, the story of my lost Jack, my 3-year-old bunny, and the story of our grief that will be forever etched in sorrow. Tom, my husband and his father, was the one who found Jack that day, lifeless and still in bed. The shock of that moment shattered the ordinary morning silence. I heard his panicked voice, a sound filled with fear and disbelief that shook me to my core. He was screaming my name, a desperate plea for me to come, to see, to confirm that he wasn't dreaming, and to understand the unimaginable. In a blur, Tom called the ambulance, his voice trembling but trying to remain steady. He was the pillar when I couldn't stand, the one making the calls, talking to the paramedics, and handling the unbearable reality with a strength that was both awe-inspiring and heart-wrenching. The hours that followed were a haze of disbelief and chaos, with Tom navigating the logistics, talking to the police, arranging for Jack's funeral. He was consumed with the details and the necessary arrangements, and his grief was channeled into action. In those early days, Tom's silence was a fortress. He spoke little of his pain, offering comfort instead of seeking it. I was so engulfed in my own grief that I failed to see the depth of his. Tom was grieving too, in his own way, a silent, internal struggle that I did not fully comprehend. He had witnessed the loss firsthand, a traumatic image that would haunt him, yet he bore it quietly, shouldering the burden alone. His grief manifested not in tears, but in long hours at work, in the distance that crept into his eyes. He was there, but not quite present, lost in a world of unspoken sorrow. Tom became a shadow of himself, retreating behind a facade of normalcy and routine. I am also heartbroken. I need all the support I can get. I cry day and night. I close my bedroom and scream. I feel pain and heartache. I am a mother who lost her child. But in the thick of my grief, a discovery changed my perspective on our shared tragedy. I found Tom's diary. It was hidden in our room. I didn't even know he had one. It was a collection of his deepest thoughts and emotions. For the first time, I saw the extent of his suffering through his own words. Tom, the man who had been my rock, was crumbling under the weight of a grief he felt was too immense to share, or perhaps because I didn't give him a chance. I was, after all, so consumed by my own grief, the grief of a lost mother. His entries revealed the moment he found Jack, lifeless in his crib. The shock, the denial, and the raw agony of a father who had to confront the unthinkable. He wrote about the struggle to support me while feeling utterly lost in his own despair. Tom was a man torn between his roles as a husband and a father, each entry a testament to his overwhelming sense of responsibility and helplessness. Tom wrote,
"It's been 3 weeks since Jack left us. 3 weeks have passed since I found him cold and still in his crib. The image haunts me every waking moment. I keep replaying that morning in my head, wondering if I could have done something, anything, to change what happened. I try to be strong for him and for Lily, but some days it feels like I'm drowning. The house is filled with memories of Jack, her non-stop cries, and her agony over his loss, and every corner reminds me of what we've lost. I see him in the way Lily's eyes light up when she laughs, in the empty chair at our dinner table, in the quiet of the night when the world is asleep and we are awake, lost in our sorrow. I can't talk to her. She's lost in her sorrow. She is looking for me to provide support, comfort, and understanding. She's a mother, she says. I am a father with a broken heart who is reminded to be strong for his family. Work has become my escape. When I'm there, I can pretend to be the man I was before, the man who hadn't seen the lifeless body of his son, the man who hadn't held his wife as she cried for our boy. My boss begged me to take some well-needed time off, but I refused. I needed that escape. I bury myself in deadlines and meetings, trying to forget this void, the black hole in my heart. But the moment I step back into our home, reality crashes over me like a relentless wave. The moment I step in, I hear my wife in our room, crying and screaming. I watch her, trying to navigate her own grief. I wish I could reach out and tell her how broken I am and how scared I am that this pain will never fade. But I can't. I don't want to burden her further. Or maybe because of the expectation that I am a man, stronger, I will never understand the pain of motherhood. I get that she's dealing with her own sorrow, and I need to be her strength. But I am also falling apart inside. In my weak moments, I want to be the one who puts my head on her chest and cry, get that comfort. I need that as much as she does. I miss him. God knows I miss him. I miss his laughter, his energy, his little hands reaching for me. I feel guilty for being alive while he's not. Guilty for not being able to protect him, to save him. And now, I'm failing her too, retreating behind my work, my silence. But how can I help her? I try, but she is in her shell, the shell of a grieving mother. How do I express my pain? It's so deep and so consuming that it threatens to swallow you whole. How do you share that with the person you love, knowing it will only add to her burden? So, I stay silent, hoping that, in time, I can find a way to heal, to be the husband and father they need me to be.
As I closed the diary, tears streamed down my face. For the first time, I truly saw the magnitude of Tom's suffering. His words were a window into his soul, revealing a man overwhelmed by grief and burdened by the desire to be strong for me and for us. I realized then how much I had overlooked his pain, so caught up in my own. This discovery marked the beginning of a new chapter in our journey of healing. One where understanding and empathy would slowly start to bridge the gap grief had created between us. Also, during my quest for comfort, I turned to online support groups, seeking the comfort of shared experiences. As I poured my heart out, strangers reached out with words of empathy. Among the kind messages, a few struck a different chord. They asked about Tom. How is your husband coping? What support does he need? These questions were a jolt, awakening me to a realization I had long ignored. All this time, my grief has been like a veil, obscuring everything else. As a mother, my instincts were to cover my child with all the love and protection I could muster. It was natural, instinctual, but in doing so, I had inadvertently pushed Tom to the margins of my sorrow, forgetting that he too was aching and that he too needed me. Now I faced a new struggle. How could I, so shattered and broken, find the strength to support not only Lily but Tom as well? I am the mother. I am the one grieving. The enormity of this realization weighed heavily on me. It felt like an impossible task to mend my own broken pieces, asking my mind to reason with my broken heart. Tom wrote,
"The house feels different now. It's like walking through a museum of our past happiness, with each room a reminder of what we've lost. I know she's hurting too. She's crying every day and night. I wonder if she will ever recover. Sometimes I see her trying to keep it together for Lily. But there's a distance building between us, a chasm that seems to widen with each passing day. I find myself questioning everything. Our family feels broken and damaged by our loss. Can we ever find our way back to each other? Can our marriage withstand this kind of heartache? I want to believe we can, for Lily's sake. I want to believe that my wife will finally be able to recover, find that balance between sorrow for her loss, losing faith, and the desire to live for her family and for the shadow of grief that has fallen over us to finally pass and end. But how do we start? She shuts me down. She says men will never understand a mother's grief. The words I want to say to her are always on the tip of my tongue. Yet they never seem to find their way out. It's the fear, I guess. The fear that my own pain might be too much for her to bear, on top of her own. The fear that admitting how lost I feel might somehow make it all more real, more permanent. I lay awake at night, wondering if we can ever find peace again, if we could ever be the family we once were. The uncertainty is crippling. I love them both so much, but this grief is like a wall between us, and I don't know if I have the strength to tear it down.
I felt a great sense of urgency while reading Tom's entries. Our family was at a crossroads. Continue down this path of endless mourning, risking the loss of my husband, the well-being of Lily, and perhaps even losing myself to an abyss of depression, or gather every ounce of strength left in me to confront our reality that Jack was gone. It was a choice between surrendering to my grief or fighting for the remains of the family we once were. With a trembling heart, I approached Tom one evening. The air was thick with unspoken words and contained emotions. We sat across from each other, the distance between us more than just physical. "Tom," I began, my voice barely a whisper, "I know we're both hurting. I see you. I see your pain. We've lost Jack. I know I am losing myself. I feel it, and I feel like I'm losing you too." Tom looked at me, his eyes a mirror of the heartache I felt.
I don't know how to do this. Every day I wake up, and it's like a part of me is missing. I go to work, I come back, and I hear you crying and screaming at night. I'm worried about you. Scared that this grief is going to tear us apart.
I reached for his hand, a gesture that felt both familiar and foreign. I'm scared too. I miss him so much, and I miss us. I'm afraid of what this is doing to us. I know I am losing you because of my grief as a mother, but we need each other, Lily. She needs us. There was a long, heavy silence, the kind that speaks volumes. Then he said,
I don't want to lose you. We have to find a way through this, together.
Tears streamed down my face as I nodded. I'll try too. It's going to be hard, and I can't promise that I'll be strong every day. But I can't imagine going through this with anyone but you. We might struggle, we might fall, but we need to try, for our love, for our family. It was a heartbreaking conversation, one filled with pain and vulnerability, but it was also a needed conversation. We understood that tragedies like ours often break marriages, but we made a silent vow to each other to try and overcome the odds.
As I sit down to write this, I'm overwhelmed with emotions. It was shocking to learn that she had read my diary. Part of me felt exposed and vulnerable. Those pages contained the most vulnerable pieces of me, the fragments of a man broken by the loss of his son. Yet, there's also relief. Relief that those unspoken words have finally seen the light of day. Relief that maybe this could be the start of something new for us, a path to healing together. In one of her strong moments, she approached me, and we found the strength to talk. It wasn't easy, laying bare all those emotions, the pain, the fear of losing each other amidst our shared grief. I had been planning to talk to her, to finally break my silence, but I was scared. I saw her withdrawn, often crying alone, isolating herself in her sorrow. I thought maybe it was too late, that the distance between us had grown too wide to bridge. Her moment of strength broke down the walls of fear I had built around me. I do love her and support her, but I was afraid to approach her. She saw the broken mom. Jack's loss has changed us, but I believe we've taken the first steps towards healing, acknowledging the loss, and I know the journey will be long and fraught with challenges. But for the first time in a long while, I feel like we're not walking this path alone. We're together, limping, stumbling, but moving forward.
9 months had passed since the tragic day we lost Jack, and since then, our lives had been a series of ups and downs, a journey through the valleys of grief and the rare peaks of hope. It was during a short trip, a getaway we hoped would offer us a change of scenery and perhaps a new perspective, that Tom and I found ourselves at a crossroads once again. We were sitting by a lakeside, the tranquility of the water reflecting the quietness that had settled between us. The discussion that unfolded there was perhaps one of the most significant ones we'd ever had. The topic was delicate, almost fragile, the possibility of having another child, a sibling for Lily. The thought scared me. The fear of enduring another loss, the uncertainty of stepping into the unknown, and the guilt of moving forward weighed heavily on me. I voiced these fears to Tom, my voice trembling with the weight of unspoken emotions. Tom listened, and then said,
I know it's scary, and I feel it too. But maybe it's also a chance for us to embrace life again, to give Lily the gift of a sibling, and to rebuild the pieces of our family.
The decision wasn't easy. It took days of contemplation, nights of conversations filled with doubts and what-ifs. But ultimately, it was a decision we made together. In a leap of faith, we decided to open our hearts to the possibility of new life, to a future that held both the memory of our loss and the promise of new joy. Months later, we welcomed a baby girl into our family. Her arrival was a bittersweet moment filled with joy. Her presence brought a new energy into our home, a light that had been missing since Jack's passing. This chapter in our lives was about finding the courage to move forward, to embrace both the joy and the pain that life offers, It was about making a choice not just for ourselves, but for our family as a whole. For Lily, who brought us so much joy and who deserved to experience the bond of siblinghood. It's a testament to the resilience of the human heart, to our capacity to love after loss. Our baby girl, a symbol of our healing, became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, life can bring new beginnings.